Hello my fellow gnomes, how are you all doing? I'm GnomeCode and today on episode 7 of our tower defense series we're going to be working a little bit more on our towers, funnily enough. Now previously we've had our placement system working and we also already created this tower with this tower testing script in it. So we're going to need to integrate these two scripts together so we can actually place these towers and have them attack. And also, we need to get some animations working because they're a bit still and stationary at the moment. So the first thing I want to do is work on these animations. So I'll hit stop and I'll show you what I've done. So if I drag this guy, well, I'm just going to create a copy and I'll drag him into the workspace because this guy is all ready to go. But I'll show you what I've done. If you're already familiar with the whole rigging process, then you might want to skip this part, but we'll talk you through it all anyway. So you see I've got this character here, and if you want to add a weapon to your model, then I've just gone to the toolbox and I searched for a slingshot, and then I got this one right here. You can add it in, put it into the workspace, and there you go. Now, because it's a tool, it's got, well, first of all, it's inside a tool object, and it's got all of these scripts, which we don't really want. So I just went ahead and deleted all of the scripts. And then inside the handle, there's a sound, some other things you don't want. And we're going to rename it from handle just to slingshot. And we don't need to be inside this tool object anymore. So you can click, drag it just into the workspace, delete the tool, and then you want to rig it to your model. Now, what I'm going to be using is something called rig edit. So if I click the model and I go to my plugins and select edit rig, you'll see then I get this skeleton appear of the character, and you can see it's all rigged, all these joints are connected. I've got this sort of little skeleton thing going on. And what we need to do is we need to connect the existing rig to this slingshot weapon that we've just created. So let me just delete the one I've already added in. We'll delete that. And then what we're going to do is we sort of rotate it round to where we want it. So we'd move it along here somewhere to roughly be in his hand, okay? Something like that will do for this demonstration. And then you need to drag it into the model. So it's not just in workspace, it's inside of the model. And now everything moves around together. And then when you're editing the rig, all you need to do is select the right hand, in this case, hold down the control key, and then select our weapon, which is the slingshot. So we've got them both selected. And then we're going to click to create a joint. And once I do that, you see this new line appears, which shows it's all connected in together. And now the real test is to open up the animation editor. So if you click the animation editor, you click your model, then you'll see, we suddenly had an animation appear. This is one that's just loaded in. But if you get into the animation editor, you can see everything's working. So this is one I made earlier. This is a very basic attack animation, right? It's not very exciting, but it kind of does the job. Okay, it's not the best. But if you want to animate, it's pretty simple. I'll just delete all these keyframes. You just select a part, and then you can rotate it. Right? We could rotate this upwards, and then you sort of click further along the timeline, and then you could rotate it back down. So then if I headed to the beginning, and I click this little play button, then he's going to move his arm up and down. That's pretty fast, but you can see. And so you just build up these little markers along the timeline until you've got your animation. Now, we're going to need two animations. We're going to need an idle animation, just for when he's stood around, not doing anything. And we're also going to need an attack animation for when he's attacking the mobs. So for idle, you want to make sure the loop is enabled. And we'll set the animation priority to idle. And then all you need to do is click publish to Roblox. We'll just call this idle slinger or something like that. So just so you know what it is, then click submit and it'll upload, and then you'll get an ID. So click to copy it, close this, and now we've got the ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in this configuration folder, add in a configuration folder, and inside of that, you're going to want the animations. So create an animation object. We'll name this one idle. You paste in the ID. And then for your attack animation, it's pretty similar. But this time, make sure that looping is disabled, and you'll want to create obviously some different animation. Right, what a great animation that would be, to have him do a little wave. And then you would publish it to Roblox again. Oh, actually, you need to make sure the animation priority is set to action. And then you can publish that to Roblox as well. Get the ID and paste it in for an attack one. And so then you should have two just like that. So I can go ahead and close all of this now. I'll delete that because I've already got mine from earlier over here. But once you're done, move him into the towers folder in replicated storage, and now you have your rigged slinger. So now all we need to do is actually animate him in the game. So you might remember in starter player scripts, we created this mob animations folder, this local script. We have a look at it here. So this local script, it waits and detects whenever anything is added into the mobs folder in the workspace, and then it connects it to this function. And this just loads the animation and then plays it. This is pretty much what we want to do for the towers. So we could just copy and paste it and do something very similar, but that's a lot of repetition to essentially do all the same stuff twice, but just to change the animation names. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to delete that. Instead, we're going to try and make this script be a bit more general so we can reuse it. Let's just rename it from mob animations just to our animations, so we know we're covering all bases. And instead of having an animate mob function, let's make this a bit more generic and break it into two different functions. Because if we look at the first half, well, everything is always going to be using this to load in an animation folder and object and so on. It's only here where we actually specify that we want the walk, that it's actually any different. So how about we create a function and we just call this one set animation. So local function set animation, and we'll send to it the object like we did before, but then this time the animation name that they want. So we'll call this anim name just for short. And now when the child is added into the mobs folder, instead of just immediately calling this animate mob function, we'll create a anonymous function like this object, so it's all in line, and then we'll be calling a play animation folder in a minute. So we're going to have another function called function play animation, and this is going to have the exact same parameters as well. And this play animation function is first going to set the animation, and then it will play it. But we'll call the play one whenever anything is added in. So just like that. And then we'll specify the animation name, which for mobs is walk, because we just want them to walk straight away. We haven't got an idle. And then for towers, well, we'll copy and paste it. It's pretty much the same thing, but it'd be workspace.the_towers folder. And the animation to play is our idle animation. Notice that I'm using capital W, capital I, because that's what I named my animations in the folder. You've got to make sure you use the exact same case, as it is case sensitive. Okay, so let's start to dissect this function a little bit. So let's have a look. The first part where it just grabs the humanoid and the animations folder. Well, we definitely want to do that. So I'm going to select it, Control X, and paste it into the set animation function. And then the next thing it does is it checks if there was a humanoid in animations folder. And we definitely want to do that. So Control X and paste that in. And the next thing it does is it grabs something called the walk animation. Now, we don't always want to grab the walk animation. We want to grab whatever that animation name was. So I'm going to Control X, move that, and paste that into the top here. But then instead of specifying the walk animation, this is just going to be a generic animation object. I'll name the variable. And then instead of saying we'll want to look for walk, we're going to look for whatever the anim name variable is equal to. whatever that parameter that they sent. In this case, walk, and then in the other case, idle. So once we've got that animation object, check that we actually have an animator. So that's going to be exactly the same as we did down here. We will control X, and we'll check, first of all, if we have an animation object. If animation object, then we will create the animator, and then we're going to want to load that animation track. So down here, when we're getting the walk track, well, it's going to be the same thing, but this time local animation track, and this will be equal to the animator, load the animation, and then that generic animation object, whatever it is. And once we've done that, then we can simply return. Okay, so that's our set animation function. We can now get rid of this old animate mob one. We've got nothing more we want to steal from it. We've pretty much converted it now into this new one. And now we just need to call the set animation from the play animation function. So that's pretty simple. We'll just, we'll pretty much call it straight. We'll copy it, paste it in. We'll just set everything up. So we'll make sure we have an animator and we have the animations folder and everything. But because we're returning it, we're sending that animation track variable back to us. We need to capture it in a variable. So local animation track equals what we're being returned. And then we can check if we actually have an animation track. Because remember, if for some reason there isn't a folder or they don't have a humanoid, then we're never going to get to this line here. It's never going to be returned to us. So if it has been returned to us, if we've got one, then we'll use that and we'll tell it to play. Otherwise, if for some reason something's gone wrong, we'll just put a warning out. We'll say, warn, animation track does not exist. And if it doesn't, then we obviously need to exit out of this. Something has gone wrong. So we'll just return. We'll head back. So that should be our animations local script done. And now it covers both the mobs and the towers, and everything is neatly organized rather than having to repeat ourselves. And we can now just easily reuse this for other animations. So now let's just click play and we'll enable the output. Now we can start scripting and we will check if that's working when the tower gets added. Let's check if there's any errors. So I'll click for a slinger and you'll see it's working straight away. So even though he's just a placeholder, he's already animated into place. And I can click him and there we go, he's animated. He's doing his gentle bobbing up and down. Actually, I'm not sure if I like him being animated while he's in the placeholder mode. If you don't want that, simple enough fix, I think we're going to remove it. So if we we'll stop the game and we'll head into our game controller script. And if you remember, we had this add placeholder tower function where we just created that temporary one. Here it is. We cloned it and then we added it into the towers folder. Well, we probably don't need to put it straight into the towers folder, seeing as it's just a template, and then we remove it straight away. So I'm actually just going to add it into the workspace, not into the towers folder. So now if I hit play, it won't be animated because it's not detecting for it. So if I add it in now, there we go. We've got the generic placeholder template, and then only once I place it, is it then going to start animating it. So that's cool. We've got an idle animation going on, but we haven't got any attack animation and we haven't got any attack abilities. The only thing doing the attacking right now is this generic tower we added. So let's stop the game. And now the next script we need to merge is this one inside the tower, the tower testing script as we called it. And we want to merge the contents of this script over into our mob, so not our mob, our tower module script. So at the moment, this is pretty bare bones. It's just got the one function to spawn in a tower. Now, if we remember, in our mob module script, we had the spawn function, and then we immediately called, inside of a coroutine, the move function as well. And we're going to do a similar thing now with our tower script. So we're going to create a new function, at the top called function tower.attack. And this we're going to call from the tower.spawn. So after we've set the collision group, we'll say coroutine.wrap, and then we'll wrap it just like we did with the move. So tower.attack is the name of the function we want to call. And it is going to need some parameters. That'll be the tower itself. Now we can't use the word tower as we're already using that. So let's just say new tower, because it's a new tower that's just been spawned in. And what this function is going to do is it's going to find a target to attack, and then it's going to deal some damage. So essentially what we've already got going on in of this while loop here in our tower testing script. So I'm actually going to copy the contents of this. Copy these few lines. I don't need the while true loop anymore. I'll show you why. So I'm going to paste them into the attack function. And after 1 second is up, I can just recall the name of this function. I'm going to call the function from within the function. And so now I'm creating a loop. So it'll do this code, wait a second, call the function again, which is this, and then it will just start again from the top. So I'm creating a loop or a recursive function. Now, of course, this required the find nearest target function. So I'm going to need that as well. Head to tower testing, select this find nearest target function, copy and paste it into our tower module script right at the top. We're not going to use local anymore, so delete that. And while we're here, we might change the max distance from 50 to like 20 or something. We don't need it to be quite so high. I see there's a red underline over here. We've obviously moved a variable. So let's just correct that. Workspace dot mobs, and we'll get children. We might as well move these commented lines though, so we'll delete them. And there we go. Exactly the same as before. Inside of our attack function, we're going to want to make some more changes a little bit later on. But for now, I'm just going to leave this as it is and check that our attacking actually works. So let's have a look. We're spawning in, and then we're going to call this function. Oh, we need to add the parameters, remember, the new tower. So 2 more brackets, and then we'll put the new tower variable. So we'll send it along with it. So let's take that tower we're using for testing. We'll banish it into server storage, and now we'll click play and see how we're looking. So the zombies are already coming at us. Let's add in a slinger quick. And oh, straight away we've got an error. Let's see what's going on here. So it's coming from line 52. Hit stop. What's happening on line 52 of our tower script? Line 52. Oh, where we call the attack function. I think it's to do with our nearest target, because it's actually line 15 is the actual error. And I see we're using this tower variable, or we were doing in our old script, but we can't use that anymore because that's the name of the entire module. So instead we need to find it relative to the new tower. Because remember, this is a generic module script that's going to be used by every single tower in the game, rather than before where we just had the one tower and each tower was the parent of the script. So remember, we're using this new tower variable, send it to the find nearest target function. And then in here, it'll be, instead of tower.position, it'll be new tower dot humanoid root part dot position, and make sure it's parameter at the top of the function. There we go. So that should get rid of that error for us. Add in a slinger, and there we go. He's starting to deal some damage, but he's facing the wrong way, isn't he? And he's not animated when he attacks. So clearly that's the next thing we need to do. We need to have some attack animations going on. That's actually going to be fairly straightforward, but we're going to need to communicate between our server script over here and our local script over here in our animations. So we're going to go to our replicated storage, go to the events, and we're going to add in a brand new remote event, and we'll call this animate tower. And then inside of our tower module script, we will go up to the top, and just like we had the spawn tower event, copy and paste that, but this time it will be the animate tower event. and we'll be looking for animate tower. Again, make sure all the spellings are correct because otherwise it's not going to find it. So now we've got the animate tower event variable. Once we've done our attack, well, actually, probably just before we've done the attack, we're going to want to get that event and fire all clients. So we'll send it to every player in the game. And the information we're going to need to send to them is the tower to animate. So in that case, it's this one, new tower. And the name of our animation as well, which is going to be attack. So now that we're firing this event, we just need to detect when it's received on the client. So we can actually copy this variable, head into our animations local script, and paste it at the very top. We're also going to need some variables for the events folder and the replicator storage. So we can copy and paste them over. One for replicated storage. Paste that in. Oh, we want it at the top because it's a service. And then we're going to need a variable for the events as well. So we'll copy that and paste it in. So there we go. We've got the variables that we need. But now we need to detect when this event is fired. So let's head right down to the very bottom of our script below these two events. And we'll say animate tower event dot on client event. And just like those two, we'll connect that into a function. And remember those two parameters that we gave ourselves was the tower that we wanted to animate and the name of the animation. So we'll call that anim name for short. And when we receive that event, well, now all we need to do, we don't need to do any extra coding. We just need to call that play animation function. So we say play animation. The first parameter is the name of the object, the model. So that's that tower variable. And then the name of the animation we want to play, which is whatever the value of anim name is. So that's all we have to do. So now let's hit play and see if that attack animation is going to play for us. We'll click spawn. Spawn went in. And there we go. We've got a basic attack animation going on. Now he's not actually pointing the right way and it seems to be looping. So we might have a problem with our animation there. So we're waiting 1 second and then firing off the animation. What we really want to do is you want to make sure we're firing this animation remote event before we even do any damage. And then afterwards, we're going to wait for that cooldown, which in this case is it's just 1 second. Maybe we'll change that later on. But after we've waited for 1 second, then we will call it again. So I think that should fix our logic a little bit there. Let's try spawning this guy in again. We'll spawn him in. We'll shoot 1, 2, 3. And there we go, he stops. That's fixed that bit of logic. Now this works, he's doing a little animation, but he doesn't actually turn to the enemy. So at this point, even if the enemies get round the side of him, he's still facing forwards, which is a little bit rubbish. So what we want to do is we want to create a C-frame that will face in the direction of the enemy. So to do this, we'll hit stop. And to help us with this, we're going to add in something called a body gyro. Okay, it's a body mover object. So we'll head into the tower spawn function down here, and after we've created it, we'll say local body gyro equals instance.new, and we'll create that body gyro object, and then we're going to set some properties. So the body gyro dot max torque, and that'll be that's a vector 3. So kind of like how much resistance you want there to be, how much power, or how much torque, essentially. So we want this to be as much as possible. So I'm just going to put math.huge for each one. So this is just essentially infinite for x, y, and z. And then body gyro.d, that's the dampener. And we'll set this to 0. We don't want there to be any pause. We just want it to be immediate. And then we'll set the body gyro.cframe to be equal to the new tower dot its humanoid root part dot C frame. So its root part, want it to be its current position. And then finally, we'll set the parent to the body gyro to be inside of the humanoid root part. So now that we've set the default values for the body gyro, we just need to change what its values are going to be when they actually do that attack. So let's head back to our attack function up here. And we're actually going to check, first of all, once we've checked there's a target, let's just check that the target has a humanoid. And also that the target dot humanoid dot health is greater than 0. I only want to attack something that is alive. And now if we know it's alive, now we can start to set that gyro. So it's going to be the new tower dot its humanoid root part, which is where we place the body gyro. So new tower dot humanoid root part dot body gyro, and we'll set the C frame of that equal to, and we're going to create a variable for this. So we'll say local target C frame will be equal to C frame dot, and we're going to use the look at function. That takes two different values. One, a starting position, and a second one where you want it to point towards. So the first one is the new tower dot its humanoid root part dot position. And then we want to look towards the target. And it's the same for them, that humanoid root part dot position. So we'll paste that in. And so now we have our two position values, and we've got that variable, the target C frame, which is going to be the C frame of the body gyro. So once we've set that, it's now going to turn towards, hopefully, our target. So let's run and see if that's working for us. We will spawn in a slinger over here. And, oh, we have a problem, I see, down in our output. What's going on? On line 55, we have a problem. Oh, I see. I forgot to put dot new. There we go, vector3 dot new when I was setting up that new vector. We'll spawn in a slinger over here. Spawn him in. So it's just facing forwards, and hopefully when these guys come close, there we go. He's going to turn towards them and start firing. Fantastic. And then he goes back to his idle. So let's add a few more of these guys in. We'll add a couple in along the way. So hopefully now we can start to kill a few more zombies. And they're going to be all pointing towards the direction that we're shooting. Looks a little bit more realistic, doesn't it? So here we are, a successful defense of our land by these very hard-working gnomes with their slings. We're getting quite a bit yet to do, but hopefully you found that helpful. We've got all our scripts linked together now, all in one place, and we can start venturing on with some new features now. So thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, then leave a like, and why not even consider subscribing. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!